The Straw Hat Pirates' worst nightmare has begun. Out at sea, the Navy saw large lightning bolts striking the center of the island. Some soldiers witnessed it firsthand and believed the phenomenon was identical to how St. Saturn had landed on the island earlier. Nearby, a giant archer was still firing numerous arrows at the Navy's warships, each arrow the size of a mast, making them incredibly powerful. Another giant warrior took the opportunity to jump onto the remaining ships to destroy them all. Inland, the group of giants was excitedly heading towards the center of the island, with dangerous lightning flashes before them, signaling that Luffy needed help. Even Frankie's group had to stop, worried about their friends. Luffy, at this moment, looked surprised, not understanding what had happened, as 4 extremely dangerous dark shadows appeared around him. Sanji exclaimed that something unusual was happening in this place, and therefore they had to leave as soon as possible. At this point, Dr. Vegapunk's recording was still ongoing, broadcast live from Mary Joy's, and it was known that no one could stop this live broadcast. However, the current appearance of the 4 leaders of the world government has put Egghead at risk of destruction. Saturn was continuously attacking Luffy, but he kept dodging. The dark shadows behind him began to reveal their true forms. Seeing this, Luffy was deeply shocked, thinking they were 5 giant monsters. Frightening sounds emanated from within the thick smoke. Luffy stood there, waiting to see what would happen next. In his mind, he felt as if he was being swallowed by the darkness of the 5 monsters. One by one, the different forms of the 4 newly summoned beings appeared. These are the forms of the rulers at the head of the world government. The 5 monsters including Jew Peter in the form of a sandworm, Marcus Mars in the form of a bird, Warcury in the form of a pig, Nusjuro in the form of a horse, and finally Saturn in the form of a spider. When these 5 monsters appeared together, destruction had begun. Their roars pushed Luffy back. The buildings also could not withstand it, and collapsed. With his abilities, Luffy easily escaped the rubble. However, standing before him was the massive body of the enemy. At the start of the battle, just the 5 monsters walking past Luffy forced him to dodge. These are the supreme judges of the world government. If this continues, the entire island will be destroyed. Luffy demanded that they stop. He then enhanced his body, transforming into a giant form to fight. However, Saturn used a special skill, an attack with his gaze, to defeat Luffy. Just like that, his large body shrunk back to its original form. Nusjuro then, with incredible speed, jumped over Luffy, and Luffy was also thrown far away by the pressure. With his speed, he reached the battle on the coast, where the pacifistas were still attacking the Navy warships. The damage was immense, which is why Nusjuro had to rush to help. He transformed into a centaur and used a sword to attack. The high-speed slash instantly froze the pacifista's body. This ability is somewhat similar to Brook of the Straw Hat Pirates. Just like that, a series of cyborgs were neutralized by Nusjuro, unable to function. His movement speed was so fast that Navy soldiers couldn't even see what was happening. In this way, the world government faction was able to retain all the pacifistas so that the damage would not increase. The battle on the coast was considered over as the cyborgs had part of their bodies frozen. The soldiers at this time also saw the giant horse form, but Nusjuro disappeared immediately afterward. Inside, Luffy was blown away once again by Marcus Mars. At the same time, Sanji had contacted Nami and Robin. He didn't know how to explain what was happening below, warning of a great danger approaching them. He asked them to escape immediately, and the giant bird also separated to do the same work as Nusjuro. The Marines were happy to regain the upper hand, as they could now avoid unnecessary battles with the cyborgs. The Vice Admiral ordered everyone to quickly find Bonnie and destroy the Straw Hat Pirates. Above, after flying to the shield, the giant bird let out a cry signaling that something bad was about to happen, and Sanji was also trying to run back to regroup with his teammates. He said that an extremely dangerous monster was flying towards them, so they should retreat immediately. Even Sanji had become a target of lightning attacks. Nami was worried that the remaining members had not yet arrived, and Usopp then heard a loud sound coming from behind him. Along with that was Lilith's scream, and Chopper wondered what was happening. Just then, their sunny ship rushed out, shocking the three friends, while Brook was still happily enjoying the thrill of the ship speeding away. Lilith begged someone to stop this. Back to Luffy's battle in his Sun God Nika form, Saturn began to feel annoyed as his opponent easily dodged his attacks. Seeing this, Jupiter stepped in to help, trying to swallow Luffy, but he still escaped. Luffy realized that his opponent was an earthworm that could hide underground, and because he couldn't predict where Jupiter would appear, he was thrown into the sky. Just like that, Luffy fell into the mouth of the giant monster. The scene then shifted to the beach, where only a few cyborgs were still active. However, they were soon defeated by Nuzjuro, and the giant bird turned its body into fire and plunged straight into the protective shield to find Vegapunk's broadcast device and destroy it. Inside, Usopp still didn't realize this and contacted Sanji, saying that Brook and Lilith were temporarily there with them and the sunny ship. Brook confidently said, "See, I told you it would be fine," and Lilith scolded him for saying that when Usopp was the one who stopped the ship. Before that, when the sunny ship rushed over, he used a type of bullet that grew trees to stop the ship, and they were also planning to leave according to the original plan. However, Zoro was still fighting, and Jinbei was going to call his teammate back. Sanji was angry when he heard this, and he asked Jinbei about the situation there, and he said he understood the situation. "Even if their battle is not over, I will force Zoro back." Hearing this, Sanji was somewhat relieved. At the same time, the two powerful warriors were still competing. Lucci continuously used speed to attack, but Zoro still blocked it. His opponent ran around, creating a smokescreen to obscure his vision, and then launched a powerful kick that cut down all the surrounding trees. Zoro also responded with 3 continuous slashes, and as the two sides rushed at each other, they suddenly felt someone extremely powerful attacking this place. In contrast to Zoro's uneasy feeling, Lucci was extremely excited, realizing that it was one of the 5 leaders of the world government. In the next slash, Zoro let go of his sword, and both sides seemed tired, as they couldn't decide a winner. Lucci thought that Zoro was distracted because he felt the terrifying haki, which was covering the entire island. Jinbei had arrived at this point and saw the battle between the two, and Lucci continued to attack with long-range moves. Zoro had to dodge, so he was approached by his opponent, and the battle was still very balanced, with neither side at a disadvantage. Jinbei informed Sanji about this, which annoyed him, as he thought Zoro was putting the entire crew in danger, calling Zoro useless without realizing that he had heard it. Zoro, fueled by his anger, wanted to unleash a finishing blow in the next move. Lucci completely failed to notice the change in his opponent and continued to charge in to attack, but even after throwing hundreds of punches, Zoro still dodged them all. He built up momentum and slashed with all 3 swords, and in that moment, Lucci realized he was the loser. Zoro successfully cut through his opponent, causing him to collapse, and Jinbei was incredibly surprised to witness this. At the same time, Luffy had fallen into the monster's belly. He tried to escape, but was bitten by the earthworm's teeth. Fortunately, he was still able to escape. Luffy said he didn't taste good, so don't eat him like that. As soon as he finished speaking, Saturn controlled Luffy and slammed him straight towards Warcury, and just like that, Luffy's head collided with the head of the giant pig. Once again, he was swallowed by Jupiter. Fortunately, Brogy and Dorry were present at this time. Hearing Luffy's cries for help from inside the earthworm's belly, the 2 giant warriors rushed in to attack. Saturn and Warcury also stood up to compete, but Dorry and Brogy easily fended them off. In terms of strength, they were not inferior. The 2 giant warriors then threw the 2 monsters directly at each other. They continued to rush towards Jupiter and unleashed their ultimate move, cutting the earthworm into 3 parts. Thanks to this, Luffy was freed, which made him very happy. After seeing the 2 old giant men, Luffy also greeted them, as it had been a long time since they had met. Dorry said we couldn't stand by and watch the Straw Hat Pirates in danger, so we came here. Dorry and Brogy were relieved to see Luffy still healthy. It had been 2 years since they last met, so both were overjoyed. At the same time, Marcus Mars successfully infiltrated after crashing straight through the shield. He wanted to stop Vegapunk's live video broadcast. Below, Jinbei couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the giant creature. The bird's haki was so terrifying that even he was afraid. Therefore, he had to quickly bring Zoro back and leave this dangerous island with the other crewmates. Jinbei asked Zoro to follow him, but he refused. Lucy, despite having 3 slashes, had not yet fallen. Just by looking at his eyes, Zoro knew he could still fight. The opponent then turned to look at the two of them, just as Sanji contacted to ask if he had taken Zoro away yet. Jinbei immediately held his crewmate tightly, telling him that he had won and didn't need to fight anymore, while the opponent slowly approached. Seeing this, Jinbei used Fishman Karate to attack Lucci, a move used to create a diversion and give the other two a chance to escape. After transforming back into his human form, Lucci was surprised that Marcus Mars was here. He asked his subordinate where York was. Zoro, being led away by Jinbei, also wondered what the giant body of the monster was. And as for Lucci, facing the question from his superior, he showed fear. He then stated that York was still being held in the control room on the 4th floor, Building A. The two who just escaped were Roronoa Zoro and Jinbei, the Son of the Sea, and there were 5 other members of the Straw Hat Pirates here as well. They and 2 other Vegapunks were preparing to leave through the back exit of the lava phase, and in the basement of the laboratory, there were still 85 Cypher Paul agents and 4 Seraphim. Vegapunk's broadcast would continue in another 6 minutes. Hearing this, Marcus Mars seemed very satisfied with this useful information. He praised Lucci for doing a good job and said he had no more questions. Before letting him leave, Lucci had a request. It was about his severely injured crewmate in the control room. Please, spare him. Marcus Mars said that was very difficult. Insects are sometimes crushed, even if one has no intention of doing so. This extinguished Lucci's hope of saving his crewmate, because, after all, they were just insects in the eyes of the Gorosei. Back with Luffy, he felt that the 2 old giants were as strong as ever. They said they almost didn't recognize him, and that the Straw Hat crew must be the ones who changed the most in 2 years. Brogy asked why Luffy knew about the legendary Elbaf god's form. They were truly happy to see this form. Luffy said he didn't understand what he was talking about, but to talk about it later because they needed to deal with the 2 monsters first. After being attacked by the 2 giants, Saturn and Warcury had fully recovered. They considered the 3 to be an unpleasant combination. In Dorry's eyes, the 2 monsters in front of them were as large as the wild beasts in the Elbaf forest. Luffy reminded his 2 friends, saying that his crew didn't want to fight anymore, so they should find a way to escape. Dorry agreed, because, in fact, they had just met Sanji, who had relayed the entire plan and asked them to come here to take Luffy away. Brogy said that after reading the news about their group in the newspaper, they came here to help. The newspaper wrote that Luffy was a villain, had taken Vegapunk hostage, and was surrounded by the Marines. Hearing this, even Luffy chuckled. He didn't expect the newspaper to write such a thing. Currently, the members of the Straw Hat Pirates were separated, so they had to quickly regroup and leave this place. To inform everyone, Dorry blew a large horn, making the sound echo across the island. On the coastline, after hearing the horn, the other members of the giant pirate crew recognized it. Their captain had met Luffy, so there was no need to fight anymore. Before leaving, they also mocked the Marine soldiers below, saying that even if they attacked the Marine battleship, there would be no treasure to steal. Inside, Warcury was unhappy to realize that it was a signal to retreat, and he also wanted to issue a warning so that no one could escape. The giant pig snorted and roared, the deafening sound accompanied by haki power, forcing the 2 giants to use their shields to block. The entire island was shaking violently, and the weaker Marine soldiers were knocked unconscious by the haki. Even the giants were affected by this roar. Luffy, not hiding behind the giants' shields, bore the full brunt of the pressure Warcury created. His body began to stretch comically, to the point where his 2 eyes and the scar on his chest flew off his body. Witnessing this scene, Dorry and Brogy were so shocked they couldn't believe their eyes. Everything on Luffy had been blown away by the wind, leaving only his pants. He cried out, but showed no pain, asking his two friends to pick up his two eyes to put them back. Dorry immediately used his sword to catch the things Luffy dropped. He then retrieved everything and put them back on his body as if nothing had happened. Brogy asked if Luffy was okay. He just smiled and thanked them. Luffy said he was fine, then stretched his face like rubber to prove what he had just said. Dorry laughed loudly, thinking his body was very funny now, while Brogy admitted that Luffy was much stronger than before. And now they had to face the one who created the roar of Conqueror's Haki before they could leave. Warcurry looked at the three of them and called them insects. Luffy told his two friends that the one in front of them was an arrogant member of the world government. The opponent said that to ensure Luffy would not return to his original form, he would chop him into pieces. With that, he charged to attack, and Dorry and Brogy immediately had to use their shields to block. The pig's fangs had turned into sharp blades. If the two giants hadn't stood to block the attack, Luffy's body would have been cut into many pieces. When asked if they knew who the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates was, the two giants replied in unison that Luffy was their friend. Immediately after, they used their strength to knock the beast away. Saturn then stepped in to take over the attack position, saying he didn't care about the relationship between insects like them. He wanted to erase Luffy from world history forever. Saturn spat out highly poisonous balls towards Luffy, who reminded the two giants not to touch them. He himself pulled up a nearby coconut tree to create a baseball bat to block. Using his imagination, Luffy used his teeth to shape the bat. Then he painted another layer of paint to make the bat shiny, and he also put on the hat with the number 56. As soon as the poisonous balls flew over, Luffy used the giant bat to perfectly hit them all away, even saying, "I'm returning these poisonous balls to you." Warcurry and Saturn were hit, causing a huge explosion. Luffy was very surprised, not expecting it to explode so loudly. But this was their chance to escape. The other crew members warned that the flames were spreading closer, so they had to leave immediately. Brogy and Dorry thought the two monsters had exploded into smithereens, but Luffy explained that they were immortal beings and couldn't die. Even though he had tried everything, they still recovered, and they had never heard of such an ability or race. It was best to run away now before something worse happened. At the same time, Usopp's group was struggling to pull the Sunny out of the pile of trees, but despite using all their strength, they couldn't move it even a little. Nami looked at this scene with a bit of worry. "I don't know when I'll be able to leave here. Robin still needs rest, while Jinbei has brought Zoro back." Since the flying device ran out of energy, he switched to running on his own feet to be faster. On Bonnie's side, she is still running towards the giant tribe's ship. Kuma shows no signs of waking up due to severe injuries, and Atlas then warns about those standing in front of the ship, blocking their way. These are the three Marine Vice Admirals tasked with eliminating Bonnie. Sanji, on the other side, is also racing against time. He has a bad feeling about what's about to happen. Vegapunk's broadcast is still ongoing, and seeing this, York, who is tied up below, doesn't understand what they are trying to do. She demands to be uncuffed, but she can't, and at this moment, York's cry helps the giant bird discover her. Marcus Mars asks where the room on the screen that Vegapunk is showing is, and York, completely unaware of who this is, shows fear. The scene shifts to Admiral Kizaru, who is still lying on the ship. When asked where his injury is, he says this: "I have a very deep wound in my heart, but no one needs to do anything. Just let me rest." Inside the island at this moment, the giant robot has fully awakened. Although his body is very old, he still stands up and calls out, "Joy Boy." The spear that was stabbed into him is pulled out, and right below, some Marine soldiers are still chasing the members of the giant pirate crew. However, they have to stop because they can't believe their eyes. There is something much larger than the giants. This scene is seen by the entire Marine faction from a distance. The burning flame cannot stop the giant machine's advance. As he moves, he apologizes to Joy Boy.